My first guest tonight, one of 11 House Republicans who've been calling for criminal prosecution of the fired FBI director, along with Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, and other Democrats and deep staters who've tried to subvert the 2016 presidential election. Republican Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona, a member of the House Judiciary Committee and the Freedom Caucus. It's great to have you with us. I want to get first your reaction as a member of the Judiciary Committee to learning that the FBI director, testified before Congress about, he didn't reference once that he was a special government employee or had any kind of formal relationship with the FBI.
Yeah, I mean, Lou, this is incredible. I mean, can the stench get any worse? I mean, look, this thing with Comey and his so-called friend, who now turns out to be a special employee. I mean, this is just consistent with this ongoing drip, drip, drip that we find out about Comey and Mueller and McCabe and the whole gang of them. We should have expected this, quite frankly, because everybody that worked with Comey, that ended up working with Mueller, they all are tainted in some way or another, and this is no exception.
And you mentioned Mueller. Orrin Hatch says now, the distinguished senator from Utah, says passing a law to protect the special counsel from President Trump's firing would be unconstitutional, but he also, at the same breath, says firing the special counsel would likely trigger, as he put it, impeachment. This is absolute balderdash, is it not?
Oh, yeah, this is just ludicrous. I mean, President Trump said the other day, and he's exactly right, look, if I wanted to get rid of him, I would have fired these people already. And he hasn't, he's not going to. But Mueller, if there was an ounce of decency, I mean, he would recuse himself. He's clearly outside the channels of his scope. He got there by Comey. I mean, we just heard again how Comey manipulated this thing because Comey wanted to go after President Trump. This is just corruption at its highest levels of government, and there's a reason why the American people are saying, look, we just don't really trust even our highest law enforcement officers anymore. It's not the rank and file. It's these guys at the top.
Let me ask this question as well, because it goes to the leadership of both the House and the Senate. Knowing full well that Comey manipulated the system to create the result he wanted, which was a vindictive act against the president who had fired him, this is, why in the world won't the Speaker and the Majority Leader say, this is nonsense, hold the fired FBI director accountable for the events that he created?
Well, absolutely. We need to do that, which is why we wrote our letter. The 11 of us wrote the letter, because we think that Mr. Comey should be investigated just like Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, everybody else that's been shown to be tainted, that is, you know, they've got little dirt on their hands. And Mr. Comey's right at the top. He's kind of the hub with Rod Rosenstein himself. And, you know, I don't know why we can't seem to get enough fire anywhere else, but that's why I introduced an amendment on that omnibus bill saying defund Mr. Mueller's investigation. These types of things have got to stop because they are disrupting the republic. And these threats of impeachment of the president if he were to fire Mueller, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Also, as a member of the Judiciary, your reaction to 3 district court judges who've decided that they have special knowledge, special powers that rises above the Constitution, and that they can tell the President of the United States what to do on the issue of immigration policy, national security. Your thoughts? Yeah,
look, I read that opinion from Judge Bates today, and this is you're exactly right. This is judicial activism that you'd find in their pictures in the dictionary. This has got to stop as well. So there's some things that we can do, and we should do. We should maybe start talking about limiting jurisdiction. We should start talking about maybe some of these folks need to be removed. But this is setting aside, without constitutional authority, what the President of the United States clearly has power and authority to do. And now what they did is, in this one, they said, you got 90 days to come back and tell us why. You got to give us better reasons why you want to rescind DACA. And that's ludicrous. He's the President of the United States, who we have delegated that authority. It's also a constitutional delegation. And the only thing that you got going on here is a former Homeland Security Secretary wrote a memo. The Obama administration said, we're going to adopt that memo. and that needed to go away. President Trump said, we're going to toss it out.
Right.
And now you've got 3 judges saying, oh, well, we know more than the president. We have authority that the president doesn't have, and they clearly do not. And that's a problem, and we've got to rectify that.
Well, it should be rectified. There should be some sort of correcting mechanism within the judiciary itself, whether it be the Supreme Court or whether it be administrative judges that would have some sort of supervisory power. But when a judge leaves the Constitution well in his rear view mirror, as Judge John Bates did here today, and by the way, an appointee of George W. Bush in 2001, and then to have the effrontery, the arrogance to say that the Justice Department has to come up with better reasons for him as a judge to follow the Constitution and to follow the law and to make clear his own reasoning, that's an absurdity. It's arrogance on top of activism.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a problem. And I just want to make this point clear.
Sure.
A lot of people think that if you're a federal judge, you're appointed for your life, the term of your life. That's not it. The Constitution says it's for term of good behavior. And this kind of abuse of the Constitution is not good behavior. This is when the Congress should probably step in and say, no, you don't. And we need to, bare minimum censure. We got to find some way to get at these judges who are doing this.
And it would be nice if the Supreme Court would take responsibility and quit acting like it's 1870 and actually move forth with expeditiously to resolve these conflicts between lower court judges, the Constitution, and the law. As always, Congressman, I appreciate you being here. Good to see you.